Stuart,
Yes.
Stuart, would you speak about when you're extremely tired and you have resistance? And would you speak about the process of breaking that down?
When I'm that tired and I have no resistance, I don't do anything.
Uh,
I mean, what's the point? You understand? I just try to rest and relax. I mean, we have this amethyst bed here in our apartment, and it gives off heat. It's a really wonderful thing.
yeah,
And I'll lie down on it and just try to rest, try to absorb the energy, not fight against the tiredness, the resistance, and allow my whole system to recuperate and to get back its energy again. I mean, we don't have to be doing things constantly 24 hours a day. I mean, that's just insane when people live that way. They have to, they have to, they have to, they do endlessly. I mean, we have to take a break. I mean, Rudy always said a good general knows when to retreat, to regroup, to get the army functioning again. And, we have to treat ourselves exactly the same way. And instead of getting upset because we're tired, we have resistance, relax, take a half hour, you know, rest and let your body regenerate itself. And it'll regenerate itself. And not have to walk around thinking that you constantly have to be on, doing. And eventually, we lose the capacity to do intelligently. We just do automatically. And it really doesn't create, you know, it doesn't, it's not a creative way of doing. It's a way that we have to fall back on habit, on, you know, just kind of robotic doing for the sake of doing because somehow we feel guilty if we're taking a 10-minute rest. So that's what I suggest. Treat yourself like a human being. I mean, give yourself the same advice you would give somebody else.
yeah,
Oh, I mean that. Take your own advice that somebody would come to you with that question, you would tell them the exact thing I'm telling you. Rest. So you take your own advice. And then you go back to what you have to do in life and it gets more creative. You're clearer about the way you're functioning. And you're not functioning in some kind of a crazy kind of haze, fighting against, resistance in yourself. Just telling you, hey, just sleep for 10 minutes. That's all it's telling you. I mean, you can sit down and do this meditation instead of having to, I don't know, build a pyramid. You can sit down and do this meditation for 15 minutes. Drop and do neck. Please help me to surrender all negative psychic tension. Understand? Do things that help you to get rid of the tension. I mean, that little exercise is really a good thing. Just letting your arms drop at your sides. Please help me to surrender all negative psychic tension. And you'll begin to, it's like a scum that goes right off the end of your hands. You'll feel that tension just flowing out of you. And it's just a good way of not making everybody else crazy, too. I need it. Does anyone else have a question?
Stuart, I have a question.
That's fun.
So when that exhaustion transpires in the middle of the meditation class, how does one shift that?
Just listen to your breathing. Just, listen to do a little mantra like so hum. You know, inhale and just say to yourself quietly, not out loud. So exhale, hum. That little mantra, when you inhale, you're taking in all of life. When you exhale, you're letting go of a part of yourself, all that tension. And it'll relax you. It'll get you more centered inside. And I mean, breath is prayer, breath is life. And breath really strengthens us inside when we use it consciously. So you can use it in the meditation class. It'll help to break down the resistance, tiredness. I mean, I've said it a million times. Sometimes I come to this class, I am so exhausted. How am I going to get through this? And I get through it by doing little exercises like that. I mean, there's a little, mantra that I say to myself, please help me to bathe in God's healing light. And it always seems to break down the resistance because God's healing light is love. It's love, unconditional love. That will break down your tiredness, your resistance. I think it's a very good thing, maybe for all of you to say during the meditation. Not out loud, but in yourself. I mean, Rudy used to say, please help me to open, surrender, and grow spiritually. And say that also. Or please help me to bathe in God's healing light. Now, if you need a synonym for God's healing light, it's love, unconditional love for all of us, which is something every human being needs. And that will break up the tiredness, the tension, if it ever comes about in a meditation class. I mean, we're all children of God and we don't even know it. I mean, the patience of the universe is beyond all human comprehension for humanity. It really is. It's beyond all human comprehension. The patience that the universe has. I saw a picture of Donald Trump in the news this afternoon. And I mean, years ago, he would have made me so upset. And I looked at the face of this man and I saw one of the most unhappy human beings I've ever seen in my life. And it opened up an area of myself where there was compassion for this person. I mean, his face was so unhappy, so miserable. I can't imagine what lives inside that person. You got to have compassion for him. Not saying you got to believe in what he says, but just as a human being who is completely unhappy, totally miserable. And that's why he treats the world the way he does. I mean, it blew me away because usually I used to get upset when I would see people like that. What are they trying to do to the universe? And I looked at it, I said, my God, look how tortured this person is in himself.
Yeah.
How deeply unhappy he is. I'm not a big political person. I really don't, I live, my politics is this too shall pass. Everything will pass. You know, I'm not going to get crazy with all these what all these people do. You know, fighting for power. But I just saw that today, and it really moved something in me. The deep, profound unhappiness of the human being. Does anyone else have a question? They would like?
I have a question, Stuart. This is Jan.
Yes.
You have said that um, we often live 6 months behind ourselves. Could you talk about that?
It takes our mind about 6 months to catch up with the rest of us. You know, we're creatures of habit, Jan. We have lived so long, you know, and functioned in so many habitual modes that have controlled our lives, that we learn things, and then for those things to become organic, an organic expression of ourselves, it takes months, sometimes years, for people to change and to allow these things to transform them inside. You know, and it's a very difficult part of any kind of inner work. The fact that people are such creatures of habit, and those habits are years and years old that we have lived with. And suddenly a new force comes into us. The whole system has to change. The whole system has to change. And if the whole system doesn't change, we fall right back into those habits. You know, years ago, I used to study acting in New York, and that was one of the things that the teacher used to really stress. Live in the moment. Learn how to live in the moment. And I never knew how to really do it. You know, I did it to a certain degree, but old habits always creeped in. And it wasn't until I met Rudy and learned this meditation practice, I learned how to transform old habits into a new Stuart. And I had patience with myself. I would learn things, and then I'd have to have the patience to allow them to truly integrate themselves into my life so that they became organic to my day-to-day living. And as soon as they became organic, I learned new things. And all these became habit. And it was constantly changing, constantly changing. So that's why people, they live 6 months behind themselves, years behind themselves. I mean, you look at people and they're 50 years old. Emotionally, they're 7. It's really true. Emotionally, they're 5. They haven't gotten to puberty yet, and yet their bodies are 50 years old. They're clinging to old habits that control their lives. And it takes time to integrate the newness and transform the oldness into life in the present. You got to get strong enough inside to do it. And people, you know, God, you know, people run away from this. I got to change. I've been living like this forever and I got to change. Yes, we have to change because we, as I say, we are 50 years old, 70 years old. We're emotionally 7, 8, 10 years old. We haven't gotten to puberty yet in our emotions. And we respond to the world that way. It's nothing to worry about, but it's something to work on oneself, to build a system that can transform all of those habits into life in the present, in the now. It's like Ram Dass, be here now. That other guy wrote that book, The Power of Now. You know, I mean, those were very popular books, but I don't think most people had any idea what they were reading. The transformation of years of habit into living in the present, in the now, totally different person.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. I mean, look, there's always been a serious art nature in me, from writing books and all the things I've done in my life. They always somehow were connected to the art world, And writing books taught me how to be in the present. I could never have written a book if I didn't let go of my old habits. I used things from the past, but they came through me in the present. I was open to allow them to become in the book. And then it took years. I remember when I first started writing, I was 20 years old, 19, when I couldn't put two words together and make a sentence. I used to write poetry. It was action poetry, it was abstract poetry. I couldn't put two words together, but I could put words together and give them a kind of rhythm. But they made no sense. And yet, as I got closer to living in the present, it all began to flow better. Does anyone else have a question? Like, okay, if there are no more questions, there'll be. Thank you all. God, I don't know why people don't stay for these talks. People leave. I can't understand why. It's just silly to spend another 15 minutes, 10 minutes and listen to this, what these talks here. But what to do? People are too busy. They got other things to do. Does anyone else have a question they would like? Okay, then there'll be meditation on Wednesday. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Night, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you.
see you all soon.
Yeah.